Hello and welcome to episode 50 of The Imperial Truth. I'm Greg. As usual, with me is Neil.
Hello, Greg.
Hello, Neil. So sorry for this episode coming out a little bit late. Life happens. Just worked out that way. I didn't want to rush it, but it's here. And as usual, we have some sponsors. So pick one and go with it, Neil.
Well, first off, Lil Legend Studios. And Miles is available for all your painting goodness, whether it be commissioning a centrepiece or commissioning an army. And I noticed recently he's put up some of the event models onto his Instagram.
Yeah, he put them up Instagram and Facebook, The Crow and Ghost. So at some point they're going to be given away on the show, which kind of him putting them up reminded me that I've got them somewhere. And I need to dig them out so we can give them away.
And they're sort of good sort of showing of what he can do. I mean, they're great as well because they're really sort of cool conversions. And
yeah, I saw someone asking him for a bits list for her making the Crow because someone obviously was taken with that idea. But that's the kind of thing you can do. You can Miles enjoys that side of it as well. But yeah, he's been posting up, as usual, posting up loads of stuff, keeping busy boy. And in fact, we should have him on this show talking about some black shields and stuff. So fingers crossed that all gets sorted out and works well.
Indeed, yeah.
And also, we have Element Games. So visit theimperialtruth.com, click on the banner, and go through to Element Games and order all your toys. So what came out this week? Kill Team.
Yes,
and
indeed, yeah.
We've got some new KLC 40k stuff with the Khan leak coming up soon. They got the new Gord Chosen game from for Age of Sigmar, and I think it was Mark Dawn on the Facebook page showed he'd bought Praetorian of Dawn from Element, and it arrived the Saturday morning that it was out.
Wow, that's
so
impressive.
Yeah, as we said before, that you can get them very quick, and if you're doing that, sometimes Black Library get it to you on a Friday, but not always. And if you're going to go into a shop and buy it, it might be quicker actually getting it from Element and £4 off. So
that's a bargain.
Yeah, you can't really grumble at that, to be honest. I got my a quick shout out to Daniel for grabbing me a copy from the signing that was done the week before and posting it down to me. You can tell a book lover's posted you a book when it's got wrapped in plastic, bubble wrap, foam down the sides of the book, wrapped
properly
up
looked
over
after
the
then.
Yeah, it cost a fair amount to post, but it got to me in perfect condition.
Was it like spherical by the time it came
Yeah,
to
it was
you?
getting that way. But it survived the British Postal Service, so I can't moan. But yeah, Element Games, for all your fantastic hobby goodness, and keep an eye on them. Rumours are abound at the moment about what may be coming for Heresy in plastic. I don't know, but Element will be doing it at the usual prices, I assume, so I'll probably be heading there for mine.
Yeah, great place to go when you want to pick up multiple copies. I'm sure lots of people probably will, and all the extra stuff to go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a few more paints and brush cleaner and everything else as well. I always end up doing a small order with them every few months just for more hobbying supplies.
Yeah, I think you could probably spend a good £10 a week on hobby supplies. I know I'm forever buying different pots of paint and I've run out. My super glue's gone funny again. I need to buy some more super glue.
Yeah,
I'm always buying stuff.
Spill your airbrush cleaner and everything else.
Yeah.
It's all those little things that happen. But yeah, it's all cool. What are we painting tonight, Neil?
Nothing at all.
Shock horror.
Shock horror. I am I've moved out of my house temporarily, so I have no equipment with me for painting. So I've left Perturabo guarding the house. He's shouting at the builders, telling them how awful their foundations are.
And how he could tear them down.
Yes, obviously.
With ease. Yeah, indeed. I've had one of those weird weeks where it hasn't seemed busy, but I haven't had any time to do a lot, to do stuff. So yeah, no paint, not much painting for me. I've had the airbrush out on my Age of Sigmar, but that's Age of Sigmar. But it's more learning the airbrush stuff, which is good. I feel like I'm getting slightly more in control.
Yeah, because you've gone for that sort of red metallic-y sort of look, haven't you? So yeah, that's a skill in itself.
Yeah, I've done the Thousand Suns colour scheme from the Heresy, and yeah, kind of getting the layers down on that. If you go too heavy with the paint on that, with the clear paint, it just pulls, and it's not good. So
probably a good way of learning the airbrush then, isn't it, really, that you've got those different textures and those different thicknesses of the paint to learn about. And
yeah, that's certainly helping with my brush control, in the most basic form. But I do feel like I'm getting a little bit better with that. I can start to, maybe not, got to do this, got to do that. Is always hampered by the odd fire call when you're halfway through spraying and you're like, I've got to go down the fire station immediately, but I can't let this clog up in my airbrush. So pipettes, because I use the thorugh paints, and I bought a load of pipettes on eBay.
Yeah, I think I did the same thing, like all the plastic disposable ones.
Yeah, and it's brilliant in terms of I've got a call out, put the pipette in just in the cup holder, so I'm not wasting any paint as well.
Yes.
And then the quickest wash through ever, takes 30 seconds, and then leave it and I'll wash it properly later. But Miles actually put me onto some, was it Premier foaming airbrush cleaner. If you use an airbrush and you don't use this, I think you're probably making life harder for yourself, because this is absolutely brilliant stuff.
It sounds very professional, doesn't it? Foaming airbrush.
It's designed specifically to do the job at the end of the day, and it's a quick blast of that. Because I was finding that every time I went back to my airbrush, I had to take it apart and clean it properly.
I must admit, I found that after certain colours as well, colours that I thinned down, like the GW reds, were sort of notorious for clogging up my airbrush.
Right, yeah, and it was a case of with the foam, I take it apart a little bit and take the needle out and screw it in. But beforehand, it was like I've got a Tupperware box with some cleaning fluid in it, and it was like, okay, everything soaks in there, and I run it through it a couple of times, and it saves a lot of time in the long run, even though it takes 30, 40 seconds a minute to do it.
See, this is why Miles knows his stuff, doesn't he?
Yeah, indeed.
He's got all the right gear.
Yeah, I mean, you have to when you're doing that as a job, I suppose.
Otherwise, you imagine, what did you achieve today? Well, I managed to take apart my airbrush and clean it.
Yeah, 5 times because I changed colours. Yeah, absolute nightmare. But that's part of what he does. So obviously your building's taking up a lot of your time.
Yes, yeah. I'm hoping that I'm going to try and move my painting gear and get some painting done, but it's only been a few days I've been away from it, so I'm almost using it like a holiday. Sure, yeah.
Have a recharge and come back strong with the next tournament, the next kind of Golden Demon entry.
Next Golden. I'm aiming for the Heresy Golden Demon, so that's going to be my main one. I was thinking about going for Enemies of the Imperium, but I just think that I'll be just diluting my Heresy Golden Demon entries, so I'll just be using one of them in there. I just thought it's not worth it.
That's fair enough.
Going strong.
Excellent stuff. One thing I do want to talk about, and we're going to bring into the intro section for quite a while, I think, I haven't told Neil this yet, is I'm going to talk about the next event I'm going to run.
Oh.
So the idea is that a number of people said that the episode we did about the event, the feedback, the kind of off the top of my head, kind of how it went, was actually really useful for them. And I think it maybe dispelled a few kind of myths for kind of how complicated things can be, or just gave them a little kind of, flags of, okay, don't do this, do that, or the problems that come with doing it, X or Y. So what I want to do is, for the next event, as I say, literally go through kind of what stage I'm at and what I've done. And some weeks it will be, I didn't get anything done this week because I didn't need to, or it was minimal, or just didn't have time. But some weeks it will be, okay, we've done this, I've organised this, I've worked this out, and maybe you can see the way I do it, which won't be the way everyone does it, because different events need different things for starters, and different people do things different ways. And you'll see how useless I am at organisation. And it also means, it kind of means in a way that people might shout at me, why haven't you done anything for your event in the last month? They'll be like, oh yeah, I've been really meaning to do that.
And it may even stop people's questions of When's this happening? What's this going to do?
No.
What's that going to do?
No. First rule of an event is people will ask you questions.
The first rule of the event is no one will read the pack.
Well, yeah. No, this is exactly part of it. No matter what you tell people in whatever format, people won't listen. There's the nature of crowds and everything else, so it's fine. It's the way it is. So yeah, at the moment I haven't done a lot. I'm going up to a club this week, and it's a club who've talked about running their own events that might not happen. So I'm going to be in chats with them about maybe running an event at their venue. So that needs to be sorted out before I can go anywhere else, because I need to know where I am and what I'm doing and how much it's going to cost and how much space we have and, all that other jazz. So I can't really do anything till I've got that. The idea for next year is to run 2 events. And I know I said this last year, but next year I'm hoping to be a bit more organised. There was an opportunity last year. It didn't quite happen. But we're looking at running 2 events. And then it's a case of, right, where do we run those 2 events? The first location is inside the M25, which means for me it's a short journey up, which is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
It helps a lot. Also, I mean, within the M25 means all the London people, there's a big group of gamers in London. You're near train links. If you're in the M25, the chances are you're in train links, or people driving and finding places to get the train in. This one's got parking and train links. And there's actually not many events in the southeast that are decent size like that as well. The other one it's a kind of discussion as to whether we look at Firestorm again. We've got Element, and there are other gaming venues as well. So you're doing a London one and a regional one. Well, yeah, I mean, who knows? Something somewhere different, because they're different things. Because the problem with having the London one is, well, there's a number of problems, number of issues that have to be kind of addressed. One is tables.
Yeah.
And I know this venue can fit tables in. We could probably get the tables. Terrain for those tables is a slightly different matter. Yeah, I think that's a major thing. I was talking to a friend and I said tables and terrain are your first hurdle in any event. And this is why Firestorm Games was my go-to when I first ran the event, because I knew they had the tables, I knew they had the terrain. All I have to do is turn up pretty much and set it all up. And the same goes for Element if I was to go up there or wherever. Doing one in a hired hall means probably getting in touch with other London clubs to be able to provide tables for, saying, can you provide enough terrain for a table for 5-6 tables? Brilliant, awesome. And getting a group of clubs that can help do that, because it's not only the cost of doing it, it's the time of doing it, but also some events can, particularly in America, you hear about like Adepticon, they have their own stuff, they store it. You can't, in England, storage is expensive. Yes. So if you haven't got that space anyway because you live on a farm or whatever, then you're going to be paying a lot for that storage. Not only that, but a lot of that storage you get is not ideal for things like terrain, particularly when it's just shoved in there for a year. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think then you add the problem of the logistics as well, of trying to get all those things in the place at the right time and... Yeah, just getting it there. So again, you're hiring vans, things like that, just to get the stuff to the venue. You've got to have that venue early enough to be able to set up. So there's a lot of things to be worked out. They don't necessarily need to be major hurdles, but I need to know that they can be sorted out. And it's a simple, can they be sorted out, yes or no? Because that will decide whether I hold an event at this venue or not. For the money side of it, for how much it's going to cost me, for the number of players that are available, the maximum number we can fit in there, which I believe is about 80. Could be wrong on that, but I think it's about 80. Then, yeah, the numbers, I'm not worried about the numbers, and the money. That will take care of itself, because I'm pretty sure we'll get pretty much the 80. I would have thought London's a really popular
it'll be a very popular destination just for the sheer fact that, although I thought Firestorm was an amazing venue, I think a lot of people go, I've got to drive to Wales. You know, a lot of people, gamers in London will maybe put off with the travel because we are lazy in London.
Yeah, there is a side of it in that if you live in London, you've got everything in London. Why do I need to travel? You know, I have seen that at work. Some people might say the same about coming to London, but the other thing with having that venue is, depending on the venue, you might have it for the whole weekend, kind of no quibbles almost. Some will be locked up at a certain time, some won't, and all this, but you might be able to stay at that venue for a longer period of time. So it can be more of a, right, you're camped in this place. You know, we're open till 10:30.
See, I really like that idea as well. I like that whole social thing linked with an event where it's not just about turning up playing games. It's about interacting with new people, having a drink with them, having something to eat, and just really chatting about things.
Yeah, it also opens up other options. So things like having a tactical strike event on the Saturday night, say, or even on the Friday night, because the chances are you might be setting up on the Friday. So there's a lot of opportunity there, you know, and there are negatives that are attached to that as well. So it's something that's the kind of what I'm looking into in terms of what the event's going to be. Pretty much a variation on what I've done. I think having the two teams, the kind of set standard that it seems to be now with Heresy events, loyalists and traitors, you know, you fit them in, you have games affecting other games to a greater or lesser extent. And that obviously changing things up in that and keeping things fresh, but that general principle seems to work fine. So, you know,
definitely.
And there's so many options and things that can be done with that. That's, as far as I'm concerned, that starts once I know my dates, what I'm doing, what venue I've got, and then I can start sorting that out. Because again, I want to get those dates out as early as possible, because particularly with Firestorm, as I've said many times on the show, Cardiff can get quite expensive quite quickly if there's an event on. So you want to get those dates out so people can go and find hotels if they know they're going to come. Also to book time off work or to organise things with friends and family, you know, move wedding dates around, that kind of stuff. You know, the important thing.
Change the date of your wedding.
Yeah, too right. So that's where I'm at the moment. I've had a few offers of help for the pack, for background, for things like that, which, cool, I'll probably be getting in touch with people at such a point that becomes kind of necessary. The other thing is, as well, with running two events, I'm probably going to change the time of when we do that event. So, personally, for me, I'm looking at, first off, I was looking at January, because my birthday's in January. I thought, cool, we could do a birthday event. I don't think I've really got enough time to sort that out. I potentially have, but I'm also, there's other events going on in different places. I'm off to Adepticon. My tickets are booked, my flights are booked, and my hotel's booked, should I say. So that's late March. April's a busy time for Age of Sigmar, and I'll be down South Coast GT. So I'm looking at maybe March, May for the first event, which means pushing back the second event to probably October. So there's enough time to let it settle and work on the next thing. But also trying to avoid November, because next year we're going to have a Black Library Weekender. This year it's probably going to be I've heard it's going to be a Black Library Live, unofficially. So again, pinch of salt with that. But I want to avoid November because of that reason. I want to avoid February because of Heresy Weekender.
Definitely.
You know, I want to avoid, like I say, Adepticon. I want to avoid Adepticon because I want to go. So it becomes, and also Dan Quirk holds his event in April up in an Element. That's going to be an Element this year, and he's going to do his second one. We might have to have a little chat with that, maybe just trying to avoid each other, because to be honest, I wouldn't mind getting up to that either. Whether I do or not, it's a different story. But so yeah, I don't know if you guys think this is a decent idea to talk about at the start of the show, but I just thought maybe it might be helpful for groups who are organising events.
Also be helpful if you want to just see where, if you're planning on coming to the event, at least you'll know what's done, what's not done. You know, you'll see the progression.
Yeah, that might put them off.
Yeah. Nothing's been done and it's 2 weeks away.
Yeah, certainly there were times for the last event where I was like, people were like, oh, you've done this, done that, and I'm like, not really. They're like, wow, and I'm like, it'll be done on time. So yeah, this year's the hope is as well. This keeps me honest because every 2 weeks I'm going to be on here. What have we done?
Yeah.
Right.
So when you were saying to me how far have you done with Perturavo's leg?
Yeah.
I can say how are you getting on with that event, Greg?
Yeah, but there'll be some actual progress. Yeah. So let us know what you think. You know, I've got 2 packs I've already worked on, so I've got a basis of that. That's something I don't have. It was the Cheltenham guys are running an event, and I was reading their event Facebook page for their event, and I was reading the first paragraph, and I was like, oh, if you want games of heresy that are equal and balanced, I was like, this is familiar. Oh, that's from my pack. And they took it because they felt that was what they wanted to portray for their event, and that's fine. That's great. You know, I'll be looking at other people's packs trying to steal bits and pieces. You know, there are no really true original ideas in that kind of aspect of life. So, yeah, I'll be looking at people's packs as we go through the year and seeing what they've got up to and looking at whether I can borrow it, change it, utilise it somehow. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes, I suppose.
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see how it all progresses.
Excellent. I think we'll leave the intro there. We'll come back and we'll talk about a surprising amount of news. Into the news. We'll start with Forge World.
We had some new stuff.
We've had a fair bit of new stuff. So we started with the Legion bundle deals.
Yeah, and I take it these were to replace the Betrayal at Calf sets that they were selling.
Well, I mean, it's all about a quick way of getting you into the heresy. So these are 20-man plastic set with the upgrade sprues.
And was it enough upgrade sprues for every man, or had they split it down a bit?
It's been split down. In fact, we'll try and go right to the page as we talk. So this was all the legions had their own one with a little bit of stuff in there. They also did at the same time a kind of which legion should you play thing, a little bit of a background as well, which is quite cool. So I'll click on the Ultramarine one here. So you get 20 Ultramarines, and then you get including 20 Resin Ultramarines Legion Mark IV shoulder pads, 10 Ultramarines Legion heads, and 5 Ultramarine Legion torsos to mix throughout the squad. And 32mm round bases for £90. So it's a little bit of a saving, and it's kind of it's aimed at people who are like, oh, how do I get into the heresy? Oh, I want to do Ultramarines. Oh, look, they're troops. I'll go and buy them.
Yes, and what I quite liked about them is, you remember the Betrayal at Calf set ones? It was like a special head and shoulder pad and torso for every single plastic marine.
Yeah.
And I always thought, I don't want that many. I want to mix it up a bit and make it a bit more varied. And I don't want a resin chest piece for every single one. So I'm quite glad they've sort of pared it down a bit.
Yeah, and maybe that's why they felt they didn't sell. I mean, this one, you can just go and add more upgrade sprues if you need to. The only one without any heads is a Space Wolf one. Still haven't got around to that, but that's £10 cheaper.
They don't wear helmets.
Yeah, they don't wear helmets. Yeah, exactly. We want bare heads. So yeah, that's quite cool. It's say for most of us who've been in the heresy, it's not a major deal, but it's something quite cool. I felt, and it's something you can point people at.
Yeah, I like it as well because I love the plastic sets, and I think it's a great way just to say a nice click, quick and easy way just to go, yeah, I fancy some of those. Click, done, buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And alongside that, that week, the Space Wolf Legion transfer sheet came out as well.
Didn't it come out at a funny time as well? Wasn't it released on a Monday or something?
No, it came out the same day as that, but it wasn't. It's where you actually had to hunt it for the first half of the day.
Because I remember not seeing it. Then on a Monday, I went back and went, oh, it's now there.
Yeah, because I was sitting on the web that day, actually that morning, looking at what was coming out, and it wasn't immediately obvious that it had come out, and a lot of people did miss it. It took a while just to update on the website. But yeah, I mean, we've seen that. That was at the open day. It's good. Again, it's just good to get these things out. It looks great. There's a lot of cool, particularly the smaller markings on that are really good.
Yes, they do look nice.
Yeah. We also got a Red Scorpions transfer sheet, and I only say this because there are some cool logos on this as well. I've seen people talking about using a few of these different things for bits and pieces. Particularly if you want to do a slightly, a variant on a Legion.
Yeah.
But there's some cool stuff on there. But it's good to see Forge World supplying that, because the Red Scorpion stuff, I think I know. One of my mates was talking about just collecting Red Scorpions because they're all in the older Marks of Armour anyway. And utilising that. So that's cool. And finally we got Le Mastodon.
The big boy.
It is indeed. 300 notes and selling like hotcakes, I think, if the internet's to be believed.
Yeah, I would quite believe it.
Still tempted. Can't really justify dropping 300 quid on it when I say I've still got loads of stuff unpainted.
It'd make a great piece of terrain though for an event.
It would. Well, it's worth noting there's a YouTube channel called 30K. Oh, I'm going to try and remember it now. It might be the 30K channel actually, and they do they're trying to do highly polished battle reports, which is cool. One of the guys actually who's been on there, came to the event, Lee, and they had a Zone Mortalis game that they made up themselves on their latest video, and a guy had obviously been at the open day and bought a Mastodon, so they just had it smashing through the walls of the Zone Mortalis, and that's all it was just there, disgorging all its troops. Excellent. And it did. It looked awesome alongside. I started to see a few of these pop up painted. They are beasts.
Yeah, it's a beautiful bit of kit.
Yeah, and we're working our way through that backlog, which is that's the thing, isn't it?
I mean, didn't you say there was some mould issues or something? That's why didn't come out when
no concrete. I believe they were struggling with the mould to start with. Yeah,
I suppose that is the problem with these bigger kits, because they do take a lot more skill to get the moulds right and the casting right, don't they?
Yeah, and not as much as the Stormbird. It's the weight of the resin and the size of the resin, and making sure that it all stays. At the end of the day, they don't want a mould where they're going to chuck away X amount of kits because it's wasted money. It's wasted time as well, which is important in the curing process and all that. So, yeah, they're going to want to try and get it right before they release it. The bigger kits, more difficult. As far as I'm aware, my limited knowledge of how to make
how these things work.
Resin models, the more weight you've got on the mould, the more stress you're going to have on it and things like that. So, we're working through. What it will be interesting is, bearing in mind what we've seen, we also got the European Open Day announced.
Yes.
Again, so back to Amsterdam again. The 1st of October, so not a huge amount of kind of notice of this.
Yeah.
They're doing a Golden Demon there as well.
They are, and they announced today, on day of recording, what those categories are going to be as well.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because they've called it the European Classic Golden Demon. But it's not the classic as in the normal classic that we see it as. So they've just gone for 5 categories and mix and match, so single model. So that could be 40k, Age of Sigmar, Lord of the Rings, unit, war engine, Monstrous Creature, and Unbound, I believe, from memory.
Okay.
So they've gone for a very... I thought to myself there'll probably be 5 categories, because I thought doing a full 10-category demon would be a little bit risky, because there hasn't been any European golden demons for about 5 years. So to suddenly drop one on people wouldn't have anything possibly ready, and you've got to be a bit mindful that people might just not turn up and you might have categories empty. So a 5-category one, I think, is a safe bet.
Yeah, and it'll be good to see how that goes down. It gives people an opportunity maybe to get up there. A lot of people are going to say, well, Amsterdam's not that far from Nottingham, really.
Indeed.
Which is quite true, but, you've got to take these things as they come, steps and steps. And it'll be good to see. It'll be interesting to see what they show. They normally try and, every event, Forgewell will try and show something. I don't suspect we're going to get a huge amount of, maybe we will see Russ. Bearing in mind.
Could be, yeah. Could be the first opportunity to buy Russ. You never know.
It could be. Yes, because it will be.
That'll sell some tickets.
wouldn't it just? I think they were pretty well attended before anyway, in the previous years. Part of me was tempted actually to take like a weekend break in Amsterdam.
Yeah, it's a nice way of combining it with something.
Yeah, because it's been years since I've been over that way, since I was little. I was thinking, actually, well, I've got some holiday to use, a nice little weekend break, wouldn't cost too much. Finish it with visiting the open day and flying straight back.
Maybe if they'd held it in like Norway or somewhere, they could have done like a proper Spacefall themed one.
Yeah, well, maybe.
Rust.
Yeah, they got to get all the stuff over there and everything as well, and that's not so easy as we talked about with, getting all the equipment over there, all the people over there to set up. It's quite a task.
Alan Merritt did mention a while ago that since they shut down a lot of their staff in those countries, they stopped running events because it wasn't logistically viable to fly loads of people over to run an event, and it had to make money. So if you're spending all your money in flights and hotels and shipping, then it wasn't actually viable to run these events.
And for the right event, you can see them not worrying about making the money back. So a Gen Con, where you've got 90,000 people through the door, whatever stupid number it is, 40-odd thousand people, you could potentially see them waiving that a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe just in the way that the company's changing, but we'll keep an eye out. Don't expect much, but this European Open Day has been going a few times. Seems to be quite fun. So that was Forgewell. Before we move on anywhere else, seeing as you mentioned Alan Merritt, I suppose we should bring up that news.
Yes, indeed. So Alan Merritt has retired from Games Workshop.
So give us a reminder who Alan Merritt is again.
So Alan Merritt is the man that effectively designed the Heresy. He came up, I believe he was the one that came up with the idea initially, and was the one that got some of the editing done.
I think he's responsible for taking a lot of the little bits of information and making it into a kind of codified resource that we have even back then. And he's pretty much the keeper of the lore of the Heresy as well.
Yeah, so he's been a real focal point for that for many years. I mean, he was the head of IP, and so he was very much around. You can imagine that's obviously right up his alley, making sure that everything intellectually that they put together for the Heresy was coherent and all in the right places.
Trying to remember Dan Abnett's story now. I think it was Alan Merritt who turned around to Dan Abnett and said, well, of course, we always thought that the Alpha Legion had 2 Primarchs. He was, he's that ingrained in it that he can say that kind of thing and it's fine. And there were some great moments at the Heresy Weekenders where he was speaking about all the things like trying to see. He was asking the question if Ferrus Manus could come back as a zombie and all these sort of mad ideas that were being battered around. And he was the sort of man that kept everything together and decided which way the Heresy was going and what happened and how it happened. Yeah, and indeed, at the weekend, it was some of the stuff in the cabinets with his own personal collection of the original books, the original games. was stuff he bought in that he's kept
because he's been in the company for years and years and years.
A long time, yeah. So, it's good luck to him in retirement. I assume. I'm sure he'll still have an idea of what's going on in the company. And I wonder who's kind of taking on that role. I can see. I know Laurie Golding's very kind of in the mix of making sure that the heresy works and is all correct, and works with Alan Bly a lot to make sure that as many discrepancies are removed as possible and things like that. But I suspect Alan's a big gap to fill.
Yeah, definitely. And also he was the head judge at Golden Demons, so I believe that those shoes will have to be filled. But my money's on Darren Latham filling those, as he's been so integral to the Golden Demons going forward.
Yeah, he seems to have been one of the main guys, just from looking on Twitter and not being at the events per se, but keeping an eye on what he's been up to. But yes, cool. Awesome. Right, well, we will move on to Black Library. So I mentioned Praetorian of Dawn earlier. So as I said, John French did a signing on the Friday before the release at Warhammer World, which was, I did get the message of, you coming up? I was like, 7-hour round trip, add Friday traffic onto that. 12-hour trip?
Yeah, for a book.
Not happening. But luckily had a friend in the queue, said it before, one of the best thing about this hobby are the people you meet, and the friendships you form and everything else. Some of my best friends, longest friends have come from being in the hobby. And just happening to know that a couple of guys I know are going to go there, sending a quick message and for them to say, yeah, no worries, I'll pick it up and I'll send it to you, PayPal them the money straight away. It's a very minor side effect of having good relationships, which is really awesome. So if you're, and it's very doable. I've had those kind of deals go on with people who I've just talked to on Twitter. You can build a slightly stranger relationship just on Twitter, but I've seen, and on forums, people prepared to buy stuff and ship it out to them for cost. So when people do look at, you're so lucky to live in England to get all this, well, yeah, but there are ways around it. Not everyone in England can get to Nottingham very easily and pick this stuff up. So
yeah, we live in London. I live in London. I'm not travelling outside of London.
No, exactly. Well, it takes me an hour and a half just to get to the outskirts of South London, so it's a bit of a pain. But yep, so got Praetorian of Dawn, and people are just starting to kind of finish it now as well for their first read-throughs. Game changer, I think, is the term I'll use on that one. John French is upsetting people and delighting them in equal measure.
Fantastic.
Which is always good. And I don't want to say too much because, I want to. Not many of my friends have read it yet, and I'm waiting for them to finish it so I can discuss it with them. Because there's some pretty cool events that happen in that.
That is the one problem with books, isn't it? I've found that a lot, that you're reading through something, you get really excited because you've read something amazing, and either people haven't read it or they're well past that part, and they're like, oh yeah, I remember that bit, yeah. And it's sort of, you can never. It's not like watching a TV series where everyone's just watched the same episode.
No,
you're always desperate to tell someone, and they're very uninterested.
Yeah, it's slightly worse as well with the Horus Heresy schedule, in that a lot of people are still collecting the legacies, because they don't want to spend 20 quid on a hardback book, and that's fair enough. But you have to wait 6 months, 9 months, or whatever it is, to get that other version of the book. So talking on forums becomes very disjointed. You actually end up talking more with people who aren't going to read the book or who don't care about spoilers.
Yes.
Trying to explain it. And then it's hard to say Fred did this and then he died and his mate took it up. And it's like, oh, well, that sounds rubbish. It's like, no, it wasn't rubbish.
It was amazing.
It was amazing, but yeah, it has to be portrayed the right way and everything else. I thoroughly enjoyed Praetorian of Dawn. We got to see a little bit more into Dawn's psyche and why he does what he does, and Alpha Legion were very Alpha Legion-y. And that's about all I can say without ruining it, so I won't go any further. We also had they had the Summer of Reading that Black Library do every year. So we had Myriad, Black Shield, and the Harrowing. Haven't read the Harrowing yet, but Myriad was quite cool. So was Black Shield. Again, not going to say anything about that because one of the characters who appeals in Black Shield will be a very popular one for people to think back on. So if you miss those, they're on the Black Library website as, little e-shorts, which are always quite cool. They also did, one of the ones was The Keeler Image by Dan Abnett. And this is an Eyes and Horn story, I think. Trying to remember off the top of my head now. But it's called The Keeler Image. It's a link back to the Heresy and Keeler from the Heresy. Haven't read it yet. Going to purchase that and read that this weekend. So there's a bit going on with the Black Library. And I've got another interview that's come up, much like we did the one with John French. This one's going to be with Nick Kime. That'll be coming to you very soon. And there's a bit of information in there about some of the stuff that's coming up as well. So keep an eye on that. And then the final bit of Black Library stuff is, well, a little while ago there was a company called Partworks who they do kind of scheduled release, like, buy the first copy for 99p, then it goes straight up to £7.99. And they're doing that for books, for Black Library books, and they're picking some of the finest stories, I think they describe it as, in the whole of Games Workshop lore. So there's no real design. I see there's a 15 Hours is in there, which is that Imperial Guard 40k one. We've got First Heretics in there. There's some Dan Abnett stuff I saw as well. I haven't had a proper look through yet. But that got put around, and then it turns out that was just a feeler to see if it would actually work. And now it's like there's enough interest, they're going ahead with it full speed. And that starts up September. Should be getting some information about that. And we might even be having a competition on the show to win a free subscription to that, which is pretty cool because there's going to be a lot of books.
Yes. I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people probably would have the majority of books, but I'm sure there are ones in there that people probably don't have.
Well, it depends when you get into. So I'm as a guy who's been in Warhammer for a long time. There's quite a few there that I will have read. There are also quite a few that I haven't read. So particularly the way Black Library are putting out books in the last few years. There's a lot of books coming out. So you have to put. Oh, there we go. Xenos by Dan Abnett, Warriors of Ultramar by Graham McNeil, just a couple of them. 15 Hours, Horus Rising is in there. So I'm sure I saw First Heretic as well. And these are kind of their own style. And on the back spines of them, they come together to make a really big picture, all in hardback. And there's some other free gifts as well in there. So we've got a notebook, 40k Galaxy map, bookends and all stuff. But you can also spend, I think it's £1 more, go premium, and get 6 art prints over the course of the collection as well. So, yeah, it's definitely something you kind of have to look at to know if you're going to want to do it. But there's a lot of stuff in there. And I think one of my friends has signed up because he's not, he's come to the lore side of Games Workshop quite late. So for him, the one danger for him is it gets him hooked on the Eisenhorn series.
The
Ultramar series.
In some ways that is dangerous.
I mean, but that's what these companies do, let's not be, it's not being cynical. It's they're looking at ways to make money, so they're going to suck you in. And Black Library aren't going to want to give you, like, the whole of a series in this format, because they want you to go and buy from them, so it stands to reason. But yeah, we'll have more to come on that, which looks interesting. And
definitely.
It's also another example of we're watching Games Workshop embrace the licensing aspect of their stuff. So it's just another way that's going on, which is it's really interesting still to watch. And this has been going on a while now, and I'm not getting surprised with it anymore. But it's still something that where are they going to go? How are they going to do this? Are we going to get Space Marines on lunchboxes soon? Because frankly, that would be awesome.
I might start taking a lunchbox to work. I
Exactly.
think.
I'd have loved it as a 13-year-old. I'd have been like, yeah, I'll take a lunchbox to school with a Space Marine on it. Be amazing. But yeah, so it fits in all that. So yeah, keep an eye on the podcast, keep an eye on the Twitter and the Facebook, because it starts soon. So that contest might have to start soon as well. But we'll do, and as part of that process, we'll be doing some book reviews on some of the books. So some of them obviously are heresy related. Some of them are 40k with a bit of heresy kind of crossover. And we'll work out a system for getting those onto the show in the future, which will be groovy. And then there's just a couple of GW bits. So we had, so the first thing you asked me today was Plastic Thousand Sun Sorcerer. So I'm sure everyone's seen the image of the sprue that got sent out in a box accidentally of a Plastic Thousand Sun Sorcerer with a definite Mark III kind of chest plate he was standing on. And everything else.
Did you say it's sent out accidentally in a box?
It was sent out in a box for Death Watch. So this is what I believe the story is. I could be wrong. A guy opened his Death Watch, found this sprue in there, kind of went, ooh, put it up on eBay straight away for $99, saying it was Araman. I don't know how you can be. I almost kind of questioned eBay. I was like, can you prove it's Araman? A lot of people are comparing the model to the front of Prospero Burns. To quote Laurie Golding, the guy on the front of not Prospero Burns, Thousand Suns. The guy on the front of Thousand Suns is not Azek Araman. It's definitely a model that could be a 30k model. Could be. Whether it is or not, I don't know.
Yeah, I looked at it and I immediately I was having people shout at me telling me it's the next Heresy box, and I looked at it and went, well, it's only one sprue. And then I thought to myself, well, yeah, it does. It looks obviously very Thousand Sun, but I thought it also could very easily be a 40k model. Yeah,
and it can be. We can't second guess because we've only seen one starter set, and I don't want to get too much into rumours anyway. But the characters on that starter set came two sprues doubled up, yep, and the basic stuff was kept separate. That doesn't mean to say that's how it's going to be going forwards. GW then responded. Their Warhammer TV responded very quickly, which is great. It's another aspect of them being on it with what's going on online. Saying, oh yeah, this is a cool sprue, isn't it? But this is Khan, and we haven't seen this yet, and he's got a cool new helmet, and dropped a new Khan model, which we're supposed to know about weekend of 2nd, 3rd of September, whichever it is. And that was shared by 40k TV. So then you got all those conspiracies that, well, it's shared by 40k TV, not by Forge World. Whether that means anything or not, essentially you can read what you want to into these remarks. What
I did really love was the way that GW dealt with it. Because it used to be that if there was a leak or something like that, it was just, periscope down, they just wouldn't talk about anything. And this was a complete reversal on that. It was, oh yeah, there's been a leak, but guess what? We're going to show you something that's even more exciting.
Yeah, previously we've had, when the characters for Silver Tower were leaked, they just kind of went, oh yeah, they've been leaked, let's show you some actual proper pictures of them. This was kind of cooler in the way there was like, yeah, look at this model, now look at this cool model that's painted and new and shiny. Yeah, they're having a bit of fun with it, which is good as well, and they're acknowledging it and everything else. And we're still a little bit in the dark about who this guy is. It has kind of the rumours of the next box being Prospero have gone, further through the roof. I've heard loads of different things to say. It's not something I want to get into, but again, it was an interesting piece on what we're looking at. And to be honest, even if this model is a 40k model, then it's still very cool to be used for 30k.
Yeah, and it's maybe they're going to look more at crossover now. Maybe it's going to be a case of, you can buy that for 40k, but you can use it at 30k.
That's the whole reason they sold the Heresy, was because they knew that even if it didn't sell very well as itself, you can still use those models in 40k. So it had a fail-safe built in. That if they went so far, they could still come back out of it and not lose out. So yeah, absolutely. There's been rumours of a kind of winter of chaos for 40k and plastic, Primarks and all kinds of stuff. There's so many crazy rumours going around at the moment. It's the usual sites. To be honest, there's a lot of rubbish getting thrown out with possibly good information to the point of you're not 100% sure what's coming, but that's the way they work. But yeah, I suppose it's going to be an interesting run up if we are getting this plastic box run up to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite excited for the fact they've done a new Khan model. Yeah,
no, it looks awesome. I think it looks really cool. And so far GW, personally, model wise, they've been hitting it out the park. I think they've been just nailing it. So I'm not really worried one way or the other.
Yeah,
but
no, definitely.
We're going to start to see more. Certainly for 30k, we are going to start to see a bit of Space Wolf and Thousand Suns as we push towards the release date for the book. I'm sure that's going to happen. But if something's out there like that, then I'm sure we'll find out soon enough what it's really all about anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
But the other thing GW released was Kill Team. So that recently came out, and I'm going to say that because it's a 40k rule set, but 30k is a 40k rule set.
Yes.
So what we potentially got here is, and I haven't got a copy of it, is another way of playing 30k. Maybe something that can be utilised, something can be looked at. And having a look at a lot of different places, different people talking about playing the game, there are this many ways of playing this game. Don't close yourself off from it. The whole point of Age of Sigmar is play it however you want it, to the point where some people don't think they put enough rules in there. But it's the idea as well, you take this, what we're giving you, this framework, and you go and play it. So I'd be interested to see if any of you out there have played Kill Team with 30k, see how it works.
Yeah, definitely. I remember playing Kill Team as the sort of, I think it was in previous editions, it was sort of 40k in your lunch break sort of style, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was marketed as that, certainly.
And I played several games like that. And in fact, they're quite enjoyable because they are quick, and you haven't got to spend hours upon hours dedicated to them. You can knock a game out in 40 minutes.
Yeah, which is great if you have that bad first turn and you know you're going to lose, which can happen in a 40k, 30k game as well. You spend another 2 hours kind of playing it, going, no, well, I couldn't win. But it's brilliant. It's good to see. And also, the new White Dwarfs have been hitting the shelves, been hitting people's hands now.
Yes, so, I've got to pick my copy up tomorrow. I'm going to buy a new one just to see what it's like.
Yeah, lots of rules. Just on the Heresy front, they got new rules for Betrayal at Calth. So I think every boxed game they've got has got a new scenario or something, or new rules at least. But it'll be interesting to see how that lands, I think.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. That's a fairly long news section, so I think we've stopped boring you with that. Well, we've had a bit of a change for main topic. Manic weekend going on here. I know I've had stag do for my brother and everything else, and other people are moving house and things like that. So we got Neil back, and we're going to chat transporting models.
Yes, indeed.
Which is something we all do. Sometimes we think about it a lot, and sometimes we don't.
But and I had a habit of thinking about it a lot more after the event. Because I don't have to think about transporting models too much. Usually it's one or two. So then suddenly thinking about how I was going to get some of my models backwards and forwards to Cardiff made me think about this a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, and this varies as well, depending on a lot of factors. How you travel is a major issue. Where, like how much you're carrying, and there was something else as well. It's just gone out of my head. But yeah, you're right. You know, there are factors that affect all that, and we'll go through various bits and pieces. And maybe some of the products are online, and some ways you can kind of look at doing it yourself as well. So, yes. First off, though, let's start right at the basics. What's the worst? Well, actually, one thing is we're going to mainly talk about armies, aren't we?
Yes, I mean, I think that's probably where most people would be coming from, but it's probably fair to say that it may not be armies that you're looking to transport, because if I'm going to a painting competition, I'm looking to possibly transport a display miniature which has its own set of problems versus an army, say.
Yeah, and again, when it's that kind of level of painting, I think we're talking top level anyway, of trying to figure out what to do. So yeah, we'll be looking at later on in this part of the episode for that. What's the worst you've ever seen someone getting their models out ready to play a game?
Well, I think it was possibly me at the event, which was half a box lid from a Sector Imperialis with a Charybdis stuck in the top, a few golden demons, a couple of dice cubes, a few other large drop pod models, and then just watching them rattle around as I carried them backwards and forwards. And that was the point when I thought, I've got to sort this out at some point.
Yeah, too right. Lucky I didn't see that. I think the worst I've ever seen, and it happens in particularly the younger members of the community per se, is the Tesco's carrier bag.
Oh God, yeah, that is pretty bad. Yeah,
so, yeah. I mean, we're talking about. I mean, this is going back years as well. I've seen this done a number of times where the bag just gets emptied out, and obviously, you know, there's a certain amount of. You know, some of the kids have painted some of this stuff as well. You know, it's not like it's just plastic. They're painting. You know, and some of them are quite proud of their painting, and fair enough. And then it's in a plastic carrier bag, and it just gets dumped onto the table and then kind of separated out into their armies. Yeah, I think we can say don't do that.
Yeah, in fact, I remember someone, you know, the Kroot models that you've got all the rifles, all the hooks on. They were in like a big pile, like a big, and he literally would pick one up, and then they'd all interlink, and it would almost be like a chain because they're all got hooks and barbs. And I remember looking at that going, that has got to be the worst way of transporting anything, where they're just all thrown together. Yeah,
and the problems you've got are, you know, paintwork gets ruined, so you have to repaint. Models actually get damaged, or come off bases. You rip through your Tesco's carrier bag, then you've got nothing to carry them home with.
You've got to buy another one for 5p.
I know, yeah, it's gone up. So yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that almost everyone listening to this podcast, I mean, some people might not have seen the extreme nature of that, but yes, people are going to be more careful than that. As you say, a cardboard box I've used it. In fact, my Stormcast, as they're getting painted, are in cardboard boxes. Literally, like
I think
boxes.
For storage, that works. And if you're moving them about the house or whatever, that's fine. But I think anything, if you're going outside, then the whole premise sort of falls apart very quickly. Like, you know, it's raining, or, you know, you've got to go on a bumpy journey.
I see. Because these are unfinished models, I'm in the process of painting them. It's not an issue, and it's more of it's a shoebox, so it's got a lid on it. So yeah, there is an argument that, you know, some of the smaller game systems, particularly, that might be perfect. And as we'll get on, actually, it might be, like, the odd cardboard box might be good for specific models. And still could be made to work. But yeah, an army in a cardboard box means, again, you're still going to get, as you say, you know, models are going to get moved around, they're going to bump into each other, which means paintwork chips, models break. We're talking about resin here, so resin can be extremely brittle when it's hit in the wrong way. And
yes, I've heard of resin exploding when it's been dropped, and all sorts of things happening.
There was a guy, I think he might listen to the show, dropped his Guilliman at Warhammer World before the Heresy Weekender, I think, and it just pinged everywhere. And luckily, I don't think anything actually broke off of it, but
the good thing about resin, often when it does break, it's a very clean break, and you can often glue things back together. But if it's too many breaks, then I think you're struggling.
Yeah, if you can find the bits as well. You know, but yeah, and you don't want because also when a model breaks and you've painted it, it will never, the paint won't go back, you know, because it will chip off around there, so you have to repaint that little bit of it. And if that's in a tough to get place, or you get like the blade of a weapon will break off, and then you have to pin the weapon to get it back on.
The worst ones I had were, you know, the lightning claws, for the Terminators.
Yeah.
I had those, and I pushed them into a travel case thinking that was fine. But where the pressure was on the claws of the resin, they'd all bent. And of course, then you couldn't really bend them back very well, and they're all bent, and so in the end, I just had to take them off. Because they just didn't look right anymore. They're all bent and twisted, and it was awful.
It was horrible.
It was a bit of a nightmare. I still have bad dreams about it now.
Yeah, and I think the first kind of, like the next stage up from that is actually making your own transport solution.
Yeah.
So you take your box and then you do something to that box to make it more suitable for carrying models. Foam inserts. So you can get the foam that's used in a lot of these places you can get like from shops. You can.
You mean like the pick and pluck sort of foam?
Yeah, but that type of foam, it doesn't
that's
even.
Soft foam.
Yeah, the soft foam. So, it also, I mean, and again, we're talking about like the next stage up, which is probably the stage which I think most people minimum would be looking at. Things like bubble wrap can be used. As you say, that foam, and depending on where you're going, you can get different types of foam. Where I work at the moment, there's a lot of stuff being chucked out. Actually, there's a lot of foam being chucked out where it's been used in cases, and we're utilising it for different things around the station. But yeah, there's no reason. I've had a look at some bits and I've gone, oh yeah, I could do that, because, it's cheap.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Which is an advantage. It's cheap. If you've got the boxes already, you can do that. One big advantage that has doing it that way is unusual size or weirdly shaped models.
Yeah, I think one of my big things, especially with Heresy based, is that there are a lot of very large models, a lot of very awkward models, and they're probably the most difficult thing to transport. You know, your standard trooper and your Space Marine or whatever you've got, it's relatively easy to transport those, and there's lots of things on the market. It's the big things that often are not very well catered for. Yeah,
I think the current one at the club is the Charybdis.
Yes, that's definitely my bugbear, actually, is the Charybdis.
Yeah, that's a beast, and that occasionally comes into the club just held.
Yeah, it's
separately.
It's big in every direction, and it's difficult to find a place where you can think, well, I could carry it that way, or I could put it in a box. You know, you literally have to stand it on its feet and say, well, that's it. That's where it's going to be.
Yeah, for anyone who's been on the Warhammer scene, that's referenced as mitching it, in honour of one Rob Mitchell, who used to carry his dragon around in his hand on the train on the way to tournaments, because he had no other way, like no box or anything for it. So, yeah, and for those things, finding a suitable cardboard box, because in that instance, it's for one model. You can set your foam up in it. You can even glue your foam into that cardboard box. You know, the things you're looking to do are, you don't want it rubbing too much on anything that's too abrasive. So yeah, if you can get some soft foam to layer off that, you know, or it's just simply at the moment, my Imperial Knight, just because I haven't organised anything else, I have a cardboard box, I have bubble wrap. And I have, from where I've bought loads of stuff on eBay, I've got loads of the packing peanuts, polystyrene.
Yeah, yeah.
And that sits in that with my bubble wrapped tank next to it. And actually, as a rudimentary carrying case, for those two models that don't fit in the current system I've got, I need to go and buy foam and whatever, it works perfectly. So, and that was completely free off of stuff that I've already bought. So, until until I get around to having a look at that, there's no problem. Again, cardboard boxes, some of them don't tend to be too strong, so that may be something you look at. The one I've got's fairly decent, and I'm lucky in that I drive and I live out, in the southeast of England, in the country. I drive to the club, so I don't have to put it on a train and worry about other people, throwing their bags on it or anything like that. So it doesn't need to be as structurally integral as it might have to for some others. But
yeah, I think I'm pretty much the same as well. I'll drive most places, but I think for me, where I had everything in the back of the car, I was quite happy with that. But it was just the fact I thought to myself, if I have to take this anywhere else, it's very, very difficult to carry this open box around with you everywhere you go.
Yeah, absolutely, it can be. And so I think we've covered that. From there, though, very popular on the Warhammer scene back when you had ranks and flanks was really useful boxes. So these are the big plastic boxes you buy in litres. You buy a 55 litre box or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
And the really useful ones tend to be not particularly tall for the width and the length of them. So you are looking at maybe the one that's 600 millimeters long, is maybe a few inches tall.
And is this the sort of style where people would have it upturned and they'd put things on the lid almost, and then put the top over?
Well, I mean, you can do that. Again, it comes down to what you need. I've seen along the same lines as this. I've seen old steel toolboxes done in a similar way. So what you do is you magnetize the base. Obviously with a steel, you've got a steel, you can do it that way, you can kind of reverse it. But you put, sheet magnets, which you can buy from Element Games, A4 sheets that's magnetized, and then you have on the underside of, in that case it was a movement trace, but in this case it can be straight onto the models. You then have a metallic something that will stick to it. Now that could be by buying metallic sheeting, like the magnetic sheeting that you cut out for the models. With my Stormcast, they're all on 32mm bases or higher, 40mm bases or higher. I'm kind of tempted to just buy a load of washers, cheap on eBay. Yeah. And that has the other advantage of helping stability.
Yes,
and weighing them down. Because one thing is, with this system, it all depends on how strong the bonds are. So rare earth magnets are used a lot. Say bits of steel, so you can actually put bits of metal in the base as well, as a bit stronger, things like that. And then you literally just place your models into your really useful box until you fill it up. And you can carry a lot of models very easily because it's got handles on the sides. Oh, look, I need to bring 2 boxes. Well, they stack on top of each other, and I can put my dice on top of that as well because it's all set on top of the box and it's all easy to carry and it slides away. And in fact, storage at home, I've got 3 or 4 of these boxes just sat on top of each other with armies.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing as well. It's sometimes not only the transporting of the models, it's then using it for storage at the same time. Just being able to pack your army away and then put it somewhere out of the way so that you can concentrate on a different project.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a 2-bedroom flat. The second bedroom's just become storage. It's just got bookshelves and models and stuff like that in it. But even then, I haven't got a huge amount of room. So the ability to just put them there, bosh, bosh, bosh. When we get onto the foam later, actually, the foam in between the models ends up taking up space. You need that less with a really useful box or equivalent. You do have that issue of how strong do you make it. So the example of the steel toolboxes was the one where you often saw when they were open, all the models were facing upwards. And of course, when you shut it, those models, like some of them are upside down, some of them are sides of the base of the box and whatever. And you could do that with the really usuals as well. I say the one problem with them was to go to get the height for some of your models, half your models, you only needed 2 models, but they were 3 times the height of everything else. So he would pinned a couple of those, stuck them to the sides of the box, so they extended into the box, to save space and money and everything else. So you can do it with that as well. You do then have to buy the magnetic sheeting or the magnets themselves. Rare earth magnets are not expensive, but if you're doing a whole army, 1 or 2 magnets, depending on how strong you want them, because if you break hard, the odd model will shift around a bit.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And the idea of having more than just a cardboard box is you don't want the models breaking. You don't want the paint coming off. You don't want all that jazz that comes with it. So you do want them fairly sturdy in those boxes. But it can be done with 30k, 40k models.
It's sometimes planning it, isn't it, as part of what you're actually, the army you're building. As part of the build and the basic, and you think, well, you could think, how am I going to transport these miniatures? And if you need to put magnets on or washers, like you're saying, do that as part of the build process. Yeah,
you can do, absolutely. I haven't fully figured it out because, particularly with the new size bases, for 32mm bases, a lot of the old foam was designed for 25mm bases.
Yeah.
And it works, it's fine, you can work it out, but as you say, we'll go on to the foam, there's other issues involved as well. But I really like that method for the really useful storage.
What do you use for your Mechanicum army?
I use foam. And we'll go on to that when we get onto there. As I say, 2 models are in a cardboard box. But going with the plastic boxes again, I know that Dan has he has his Charybdis and a few other things which are just a bit big to be able to fit in with those other, and they're quite heavy as well.
Yes.
So magnetising something like that will be even more of a pain. So even with that box, he then has to have another box where he has layered foam into it and these models fit in a certain way so they don't damage each other. So, yeah, it has its as all these things do, that it has its downfalls. Particularly with 30k, there's a lot of big models out there now. And with resin, they do get very heavy.
And they're getting bigger and bigger as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
With like the Mastodon, all those sort of things.
Absolutely. Which kind of takes us up to, like, the kind of, well, actually, no, there's a stage between that. There is a stage between, like, the custom-made, or the designed carrying cases and those storage boxes. And that's, like, the Pelican cases.
Yes. Yeah, so, that's something I use as well for mine.
Yeah. So this is where you've got the hard, like, gun cases or the things you see on the flipping movies. And then again, inside they have, some form of foam, but you can add onto that. And they're much more resilient to impacts.
Yes, they're very, very strong, and you can buy them with the pick and pluck foam as, like, an off-the-shelf option as well. So if you know the size of something you want to transport, they're quite an easy way of sorting out a custom, sort of a custom carry case if you needed one. But they're not massive, they're not particularly cheap.
No.
When you compare them to, actual carry cases that you can buy from other manufacturers. So, but they are, like you say, they're very robust, super duper strong. I think they've got like a lifetime warranty on them as well. That if you ever break them, they'll replace them for you.
Yeah, and there's a few kind of different ways you can go with that. Companies that do them and things like that. Again, personally, I would look at that more for that specific model, or 2 or 3 that you can put into that. If you were looking at that, but robust. If you are having to carry them around somewhere, although they do get heavy, if people are knocking into you, they're not going to damage.
Yeah, they are very, very tough. I think I've got 3 of them in total, but I mainly use them for my competition pieces.
Yeah, well, so that's kind of ideal because your little orange one. Is that a?
Yes, that's a Pelly case, and I buy them in orange as well, so they sort of stand out. It makes them easy to spot.
Yeah. So because I first met you, you were carrying your little case around with you, and it's what, like 8 inches long and.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think
inches
I've got 3 of them. I've got a really small one, first off, that would carry just like a single miniature. Then I very quickly bought a bigger one for, say, a squad. And my latest one is, about sort of 8 inches. It's about 4 inches deep, about 6 inches high. So it's a decent size, but it's only purely for transporting my competition pieces.
Sure, and you magnetise those?
Well, sort of. I have an insert that I put in like a wooden tray, and then on that wooden tray, I'll then usually blue tack them to that tray, because usually most of my models have got a plinth usually. So I blue tack the plinth to the wooden insert, and then put the insert into the case and blue tack that to the sides. So there's a good chance if it tips that the model's not going to fall over. However, I wouldn't transport it upside down or laying on its side, because eventually the model would fall inside the case.
Yeah, and the beauty of you're picking your case for the specific role is that because it's not a huge case, you're carrying it around with you.
Exactly, and I could carry that around with me all day long, and it's not like I'm going to go, oh God, I need to put this down. It's just a small case that I can.
And you're not swinging it around then, and you're not bumping it into stuff, and
you're mindful of it. You know what's in it. You're just holding it calmly at your side. You're not like sort of trying to hit people with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, that's being mindful of exactly what role you need your case to do. So for single miniature painting, if you want to go to a Golden Demon, again, back in the old days when people used to enter just to get in early, you used to see all kinds of stuff regularly. Most people back then, because we're talking, I'm talking back flipping 15 years. When I worked at GW, maybe something like that. Yeah, the end of the Lord of the Rings bubble, basically. And when you look at most people carried their model in their hands.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, you saw plenty of people in the queue just holding a model.
Because there weren't so many affordable solutions without making your own. I think a lot of people were just like, it's just easier just to, put it on the passenger seat, put the seatbelt around it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think as well for competition painting, you're looking for a different type of transport, because for me, it's very much about the piece not being touched.
Yes.
Because you spent so long getting maybe the colours right or weathering powders on there. If you start handling it or having it rub up against something, you could spoil the work you've done. So it's very much about it the model itself not touching anything. So that sort of case works well for that. But then again, when you're transporting an army, you're thinking of much different criteria, which is much more probably safety of the journey. So it being in foam is a lot easier.
Yeah. So and then we get to, as you say, foam and the companies that are making these solutions, shall we say, for them. And it's not just foam either. I think actually we might, just because it's not foam, we might start with Table Wars product. We've only just remembered that they do. So they make the display towers. And these are little, how do you explain them? I mean, you go to tablewar.com and you can see them. But they have trays in them, and then they slot into a box. So basically you pull the whole tray out of a box.
Yes.
So they have like round holes to put your miniatures in. You pull the whole tray out and they're there ready to go. So the whole thing is designed to stay upright, and you can pull those trays in and out, put whatever you want on, and it's pretty much just deploying your army straight out.
Yeah, and I've seen quite a few painters use a similar sort of method to this, because again, it very much has that sort of feel that your model's not being touched.
Yeah, and I've seen other people do these in a wooden format as well, and yeah, there's certain. I know Carl talks about his they're almost on display as well, and how Doug is always ready to go before he is, because you're not pulling them out of the foam. They're there. You can just ping, 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 and away you go.
I suppose in some ways with tournaments as well, there's often that element of people where you're displaying your army for people to look. And if you have got a case like that, you can actually almost leave them in the case for people to look at.
Yeah. Personally, I'm not a major fan. I think the idea is cool. I think in reality, just not a fan is the word. It's like nothing major against them. Just doesn't really get me kind of going. I can fully understand, the ability to pull those units out. The one good thing, because they're all on the trays nice and easy, is at an event, you can lock the front, take them to the next table. It's all there in that case, which is actually one of the advantages of the really useful boxes as well, because that becomes your tray then to move the models around with.
Yeah, having a tray is, I've realised the benefits of having a tray after the event.
Yeah, and Firestorm Games will hire you a tray for free, but with a deposit, which is understandable. But having your own kind of facility, because not every place will. You'll go to a gaming hut and they won't have anything, and then all of a sudden you're moving 30, 40 infantry plus 5 tanks, and you're just having to try and gamble. And I've watched people with their old GW cases get like the handle caught on a table, and watched an old really well painted Tomb King's army just slide off. And and the problem is because it's Tomb Kings, that almost all of them are metal.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are very hard to put together, and it's like, and it's painful to watch. So having a solution for that as well. And these display towers, they double up for that, which is really cool. But there's no foam. And the other beauty of them is as well, because they're slotted down the side. So if one of your models is really tall, awesome. Well, you just leave a big gap before you put the next tray in.
Yeah, so it has got that quite good versatility, isn't it? Because I think that's the problem with some other cases. You've got to think about the height of models, and some models don't fit very well.
Yeah, it's and it's down to they're not cheap, but yeah, as you say, they're quite cool. They are quite cool. You've written one down here, Hobby Zone.
Yeah, I was doing a bit of research online because I know I've seen some people with some wooden cases, which is a very similar sort of format to the Table War sort of case.
Yeah, I must admit, I've never heard of these.
No, I mean, it's just doing some research. I've seen people with wooden cases a lot, and often I think people do make their own because it's a very simple sort of idea. You get a rough wooden box, you have those slotted inserts, you screw or magnetize things to that board, and then slide them in.
Yeah, so this one you have to do a little bit of that work yourself. You either, as you say, mold them into it or what have you. For spending that kind of money, I'd prefer to go with something like Table War personally, where you buy the inserts you want, because I'm not that way inclined. I'm just like, no, I just want to buy what I want. But it's quite cool. And as you say, I suspect, with Kickstarter and things like that, the way that a lot of these small businesses can kind of put themselves out there, you might see a few more of those kind of things popping up down the line.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some new ideas that people come up with for getting your models backwards and forwards.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. On to the foam ones then. And should we start off with Games Workshop?
Yeah, because they've been a good staple, haven't they, over the years? For your characters.
I mean, way back it used to be the little folding briefcase style with the eggshell type.
Yeah, I had one of them.
Yeah, the egg box type foam. And then it moved on to the standard cases we all knew and loved. In fact, I use a small one for storing all my paints. So for some reason you had 9 spaces, 36 spaces per level. It was always really annoying. With the hard plastic, foam.
Very bad latch.
Yeah, sometimes those latches, again, I remember seeing a mate's Tyranid army go flying across the room because he picked it up and didn't realise it wasn't fully closed. But now they've gone to this zigzag foam.
Yes, they have. And I think actually when I saw that zigzag foam for the first time, I did think to myself, what a great idea.
Yeah, a lot of people weren't sure about this, and I must admit, I was like, okay, I can understand the principle, and in theory it works very well. Then I actually saw a guy at the local G-Dub using it, and wow, you can fit a lot of models in them.
I think it gives real versatility to the space that you've got to use, doesn't it? Because you can push it and pull it, and you can squeeze models in where you possibly may have only got one in before. It does have a lot of uses.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were thinking that it wouldn't offer the protection that the other kind of more standard foam cases do. But actually, I think it's not bad. I wouldn't necessarily. There are certain models that I wouldn't necessarily put in there. But then there are certain models that in any foam you're always a bit concerned about.
Yeah.
But there's certainly something to it, the way it sits, the bases sit underneath and everything else. And as you say, if you've just got standard Marines, you can fit a lot of Marines in them.
I bought one of the hard cases when they came out, and it has a zigzag foam in it, and I bought it for my Night Lord's army, and I very quickly realised that I could probably get about, if I had like a full Marine army, because I had about 30, 35 Marines in my Night Lords, and the first tray just ate them all up, and I went, oh, right, okay, I've got like 4 more trays.
yeah, absolutely right. And then, again, we talked about slightly odd shaped kind of vehicles and stuff. The one limitation, and you get this a lot with certain foam companies, is the height.
Yes.
So you are limited by how tall each kind of level of foam is to an extent. I mean, you can turn the next layer upside down potentially and do that as well, but then you're losing a lot of the usage of the foam. So, but they're good. I do think they're good. They're not cheap, but then they're the premium brand name, as it were.
And very easy to get hold of.
Yeah, and by that I mean it's got Games Workshop on it. I'm not saying they're the best cases, but Games Workshop, you are buying the brand. So yeah, but they are, yeah, you're right, they're easy to get hold of. If anything goes wrong, you just, it's Games Workshop.
I like the fact that if you did need something quickly, you could just pop down to a hobby store and pick one up if you were desperate. But
yeah, and that's slightly tempered by the fact that we're in the UK. So because of GW's stature, because of their presence on the high street for donkey's years, it's been harder for independent game shops to keep going, to survive. And that's, that's business, that's how it works. In a lot of other countries, the independent game shop has been the staple. And we're seeing a bit of a change on both sides of that, but yeah, you are right. Almost every town's got its GW. And just as long as it's not one of the 2 days it's closed, you can go and get what you need. Absolutely. But there's, I think some people dismiss them out of hand, and I would probably suggest that maybe not, because, they still have their uses. You asked me what I use. I use KR multi-case. Right. And the reason I use KR is, partly price, value. It will go for value. So KR you purchase cardboard boxes and then foam inside those cardboard boxes. And when you purchase those cardboard boxes then stack into a case. But those cardboard boxes are standard size. So all the foam that goes in there might be different sizes. So you can have, if you looking down on it, 4 layers of 2 separate bits of foam. So that could be 4 individual kind of marine sections on one side. On the other side, it could be all pick and pluck, one piece right to the top. So there's a lot of versatility, and when you order it, you order the foam. You can order just the foam. You can order just cases, and I've got a 4 deep carrying box. So I've got 4 cardboard cases that go in that. I've actually got other cardboard cases for other armies, so I take one out when I want to bring something else. I just slide that in, put them in the case, bish bash bosh, off you go. The foam's soft because all the cardboard creates the protection. So the foam doesn't need to protect the models from too much of an impact, and that works fine. I took my Warhammer army to Adepticon. I had one KR foam case in my hand luggage, and I had one wrapped in kind of clothing in the middle of my bag in the hold. and I think like one model came off a base, but that model was always coming off a base, so that just happens.
They have got a really good range, actually, haven't they, of different pre-cut trays, and I think caters for most unit types.
Yeah, they have. At the moment, I've just either purchased the standard ones or the pick and pluck. That's all I've done, because generally that covers my needs. I will look now with some of the mechanical. I probably should have looked slightly differently, but I've just pick and pluck, and that works fine. They're not expensive either. I think the cardboard cases, I'm trying to remember exactly how much they are. They're like about 18 quid with standard foam.
Yeah, and some of the foam trays are actually quite cheap, so it's quite easy to customise a few different loadouts and then have them sort of sitting around if you need them.
Yeah, and I mean, they do, like some of these stuff, they do specific kind of designed for being used with specific games, even if they're not licensed. It's, so where are we? Yeah, so things like Star Wars. If you've got the Star Wars miniature game, you can go and buy things for that. But we're looking at, let me get onto their site. Man looks things up online. It's always a good radio product. So they do lots of different sizes, because again, although I've talked about that standard size, they actually do other sizes as well. They do loads of different size bags, from backpacks to the big, beefy ones with all kinds of stuff on it, or down to a little one if you're playing a skirmish game. But the standard, empty is £12, with core trays goes up to £27.49. But you're filling that out as you go, so it's not a major issue. And then those cases as well, you can have either the hard cases, or I've got the fabric case for the large ones. So there's a huge amount of options. The website's not the best. Sometimes you're looking through and going, I'm really not too sure what I'm looking at, but it only takes a little bit of kind of fiddling around with to get on. They were looking at redoing it completely. I don't know if this is a redo or not, but hey, yeah, they're great as far as I'm concerned. Yeah,
I think they're good value, and I've used them for some of my iron hands, and I've got like a Spartan tray and things like that, and they are good when it's got the sort of shape, the generic shape in there. Some of them, like Terminators, I found very awkward in some of the trays, because I felt as though that they needed to be deeper and things like that. But I think for me the problem is usually the big models, and I think they cater for some of those. I mean, there's no Charybdis tray. That's
there is a prestige case for the Tau Manta, which is an aluminium case, 230 quid without the foam. £500 with the foam. I mean, obviously that's a very specific product. That's fair enough. But yeah, they do. But they do, as I was saying earlier, sometimes you struggle with the height for the set kind of foam, but they do larger cases as well. So they do like a double deep case. So if you have got larger models, yeah, that still fits into the system, but it just takes up the space of two, which is good. And as I say, for the amount of money I spend on these, I'm absolutely delighted with what they are. When I've got my fabric case now, so I don't ever have to buy the outer case. I can just keep buying the cardboard boxes, and again, they stack. They just slot into wherever you can hide them. Yeah, I write on the cardboard cases what's in them, because it just makes it easier. And as I say, I've taken these internationally. I've used these for years on the Warhammer scene, on the 40k scene, and I've never really had a major issue. I haven't really had an issue, to be honest. To be honest, they're what I recommend.
Yeah, and I'm looking at some of their bits and pieces online now. They've got some good sized boxes that I think, if you had that really awkward model, and you've measured it all out, you probably could say you could get some foam to fit it and just have a bigger case. Yeah,
and if you're ever stuck, you can give them a call. They're based in the UK. I think they're based in West London. Could be wrong on that. But, if you are stuck, you can give them a call, and it's nice and simple. And I'm sure a lot of these places are the same as well. I'm not going to say that they're the only ones that do that. But yeah, I think we've talked about KR. As I say, the kind of big thing for me is I recommend them to people as for value for money being one of the best options you can have. There are, kind of in quotation marks, better products out there, but how much do you want to spend on transporting models? If the transport for your models costs more than the models themselves, you've got to ask some questions, haven't you, really? Yeah, it's, are you satisfied with what KR do? Yes. Then do you need more? Maybe, maybe not. But everyone's going to have their own opinion on that at the end of the day. And that's why these companies make different products. We'll move on. Feldherr cases. Are you familiar with those? I'm not, no. Okay, so Feldherr make similar systems, to be honest. You've got the foam inserts tend not to change, and there are a couple of examples where they are very different. The difference that they make is their cases. So, the larger toolbox style designs of the kind of two latches on the front and a handle on the top. Yes, yeah. Well, them is one of their styles of cases, which is, I don't know, it feels a bit weird. Certainly stacking them, you can do it, but I don't know, I think it feels a little bit weird to kind of have it done that way. But if you want to carry more than one, then that's two hands taken up. If you know what I mean? Whereas if you could stack them easier, you could carry multiples on there before you need to do that, or in a bigger case, that kind of thing. They're a European company, so you have to deal in euros. So all the prices are a little bit on my head. I think they're a little bit more expensive than KR, but they also do backpacks for smaller kind of things. So if you are on the train place, but they also do like the foam cases or the softer cases as well. So they've got a range, shall we say? They've got the messenger style bags. Go over your shoulder, but then they're not carrying huge amounts in them either. So I think they're a little bit more, they're a little less kind of modular. Yeah, they look like a smaller transport system. I mean, some of the hard cases can carry a decent amount of stuff. We're talking 144 infantry and large tanks for one of them, but that's the box size. You can't add things onto that and carry it in one hand. It's like that is one hand's worth of carrying stuff. But these guys have been around for a little while, I think, doing various bits and pieces. And I've heard people talk about them. I don't think I've ever seen them. But there we go. I suppose it depends where you probably find that a company like this probably sells a lot more in a certain part of Europe, maybe, where KR are probably more prevalent in the UK, and you see more KR cases around probably just because of buying things and getting them shipped, maybe, possibly. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think if anyone's successful, then they will transcend, geographical area to some point. I know at Salute, KR always have their big kind of display at Salute. Obviously, Battlefoam we'll get onto later. They're an American company, so they're going to hit, Gen Con and Adepticon harder. We'll see a lot of Battlefoam over here as well. But yeah, I don't see much Feldherr, but it's a name I've known about for a number of years. So obviously they're doing something right. A bit like Figures in Comfort. So they do, again, it's a much more limited range of soft kind of canvas. They do have some hard plastic cases as well. But they're very much the old school GW style, which always make me laugh. I quite like that though, because it's like being retro, isn't it? It is. And you know what? For some systems, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Some models in foam trays are not brilliant. You have to actually cut the foam trays. So we're dealing with resin. When the resin gets hot, it bends. This was a big problem with finecast, was in certain countries particularly, that it would kind of lose its kind of solidity and bend quite a lot. Also found that if you had like a spear over the top of some foam, that actually it could bend over that foam. So you might have to cut the hole out and slide the spear in, things like that. But yeah, and sometimes those kind of standard egg box type foams are what you need. Figures and Comfort tend to do a similar thing to the other ones. They're quite nice in that some of their figure cases do open right up, so it kind of gets all out of the way. But I've never really had an issue in getting into any of my cases that I've ever had. Sometimes things are over-engineered, and some people like it and some people don't.
Yeah, I suppose it depends again. Like my one experience of going to a tournament, and then suddenly I was thinking about all sorts of things about making life easier and where you could put the case after you've unloaded all your stuff. And yes, I suppose there's elements that probably some people find that they think they need when they're. One guy had a trolley, didn't he, at the event where he was just wheeling everything around on a trolley.
Yeah, I think there might have been a trolley left around as well. But but yeah, there's loads of different kind of approaches, as it were, and you have to kind of look around and find the one for you. Battle foam are kind of like the premium. They describe themselves as the premium. They probably don't, but I describe them as the premium kind of style. You're going to pay a lot for battle foam, and their kind of thing is they have the hard foam, and they also, test their bags by. Some of them they drive over to show that they're going to be like invincible or something like that. It's been a long time since I've listened to any battle foam adverts. I do apologise, most people probably know anyway, but they have quite a few different options, it's fair to say, and they kind of pride themselves on being completely customisable, like KR, but they claim to be better than anyone else at it, shall we say.
Well, they do a custom thing where you can actually have the phone cut to your own specifications, don't they? Where you can
I'm pretty sure
draw
you can,
it out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can do that with KR as well, if you phone them up and send off. Yeah, they have the website for Battle Foam is a bit easier to get around. So yeah, they have kind of a step-by-step guide on, say you want to transport a lightning attack craft and a Thanatar in the same bit of foam. You can literally draw around your models and go, look, I want them to fit like this. And there needs to be certain kind of gaps between the models for the foam to fit in and that kind of stuff. But they will make anything for you. They do have a huge number of kind of already preset foam trays as well. Their foam is firmer than others.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a lot harder, isn't it? It's rougher sort of foam.
I'm not a fan of that personally. I think over the long term, you're going to get a bit more wear and tear on the paint if you're not varnishing your models, which not everyone does.
Yeah, I suppose that is a fair point. Actually, I think the foam I've seen, because I had some foam made, it was fine for my purposes of transporting a few bits. But if you were doing things in and out all the time, you could end up with a bit more wear and tear on the models.
Yeah, and I remember when I was looking at maybe getting battle foam, and I've purchased battle foam inserts for other games, like for Space Hulk. They did an insert to fit all your Space Hulk stuff back into the box in these trays. It's not cheap by any stretch of the imagination, and as you say, I just felt, why am I spending so much on this foam when I can go to KR, does pretty much the same job, and it's fine, it's great, I save some money. There are then other issues with, personally I'm not a fan of of some of the stuff that's gone on around battle foam, that's there has been some fairly public stuff. People are on both sides of that. Again, you're going to get that with all kinds of companies. People won't go to, Jeff's Diner because they don't like Jeff. That's fine. That's fair enough. So that was just another thing. I think I should probably say that's another reason why I haven't gone for battle foam ever since I bought those inserts. But they do pride themselves, say, on their bags standing up to punishment and all that as well. They have specifically designed or specifically kind of made bag to fly internationally with, to fit into hand luggage.
It can be useful, especially if I can imagine in the US it's probably much more useful because you probably get on a plane a lot more to go to a tournament there than you would do, say, in the UK or maybe in Europe.
People fly from Europe to Warhammer events quite a lot. Yeah, so having your fear with taking your models on a plane is that you put them in the hold and no one cares about individual luggage in there. It gets thrown. The next item that gets put on top of it is really heavy and your models get smashed. So the ability to have a case that is designed to fit within hand luggage kind of dimensions is a desirable thing. And I know a lot of the people who played in the ETC picked up those size bags. So, yeah, that must maybe something to think about if you do fly a lot. As I say, generally, for me, it's too much money.
They are. I mean, yeah, I think you're right in probably saying it's a premium. I think this is much more of a custom solution possibly than some of the others.
Well, yeah, I mean, the problem is once you buy a bag, you're kind of set into, like, filling it out with their stuff. So, and like me, I'm in the KR system now, like having an iPhone, really. Why would I go and buy another system's things when I can just buy another KR cardboard box and slide it into my KR case? So
and I think you can often say that you maybe go down the road of a particular system and you do get tied into it. Yeah, and that's you then purchasing more of their products because you feel as though it will match in with what you've got and it works and it saves you money by you not having to buy certain elements of it again. So
yeah, I'm not saying I wouldn't, kind of never do it, but it would have to be something, kind of to change my mind to doing something a different way would have to be a pretty good product. But I haven't seen anything yet to make me think, yeah, I'll dump KR and go somewhere else. I've been generally, mate Dan, who's been on the show, he uses KR as well, more than happy with it. He's got a little KR dice rolling box as well. It helps that, it does help that we see them at gaming events and we see them at, say, Salute and Warfare in Reading. You see the guys, you chat to them. That all helps. But I've seen people going up asking for specific products and getting all that as well.
Something we haven't mentioned, and you just mentioned about dice there, is obviously not just the models that you have to consider when you're transporting, because there's obviously the other elements of, dice, templates, books, all those sort of things that you may have to squeeze into a bag. Yeah.
So again, you're looking at here. First off, I have a gaming bag. So whether I'm playing Age of Sigmar or whatever, I've got gaming bags, got my dice in it, my books in it, and I tend to just swing that over the shoulder because I play Age of Sigmar with, my really useful box. I can just dump the bag on top of that. If I'm playing with the KR stuff, actually it's got pockets for books, it's got pockets for dice, it's got pockets for everything you want. But I still keep all my gaming stuff together in one bag. But you are right, yeah, those, battle foam, many of the other cases as well, KR will do it. Depending on which one you're getting, a lot of them do have space in there to take your, put your iPad in, take your rule books with you, take your measuring devices. Obviously, the smaller the bag, the smaller the space. Some of the backpacks are, designed for getting on the tube or whatever with. It's, you're not going to have as much of an option to have stuff on there.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, when you can, like, having things like spare templates in there, spare ruler, tape measure, and a few spare dice means that if you forget your gaming bag, you've always got something as well. Which is not.
Yeah, because I must admit, the one thing I fell down with was suddenly trying to remember where I'd left my templates and realising that I couldn't find my small template. That, of course, I needed all the time as soon as I didn't have it. So yeah, things like that I think are quite important if you can make sure you can get all your gaming stuff together with your bag.
Yeah, good tip for that one is use your flamer template.
Ah, good tip.
Because the end is pretty much the same size as a small template. But yeah, so, I mean, when you're looking at a transport solution, so as we said at the start, where do you go? Do you go from your house, walk 50 yards up the road and walk into a game shop? Well, do you really need if that's the only journey you ever make, or maybe you never leave your house, all your games you play are at your house, then what's the point in spending large sums of money on travelling solutions? Storage solutions, maybe they're different, but travelling solutions, you don't need it, do you? And it might just be a case then of having trays. If you're getting on the tube to go to the gaming shop, then you're not going to want one of the huge boxes because it's going to be impractical.
Yeah.
But you're going to want to be able to carry everything in one solution because you don't want one hand holding one thing, one hand holding another thing whilst you're trying to get your Oyster card out or whatever. Again, that's a pain. So,
and again, if you're getting on a plane and you've got to be detached from your gaming bag or whatever, then you want to know that possibly it's got the security and the safety and all those sort of things that would mean it's going to get there in one piece.
Yeah, and that's where you might be spending a bit more money. It's going through customs with toy soldiers can be interesting as well. Here, every year at the ETC, you hear different stories about people getting searched, particularly with the older metal models, because it will go through the scan and it's just a jumble of metal bits and pieces in a box in the middle of their luggage, and it's like, what the heck's that? So sometimes it's worth writing on there, like, these are miniature figurines on top of it, so that when the security guys get it, they don't just rip it open, shove upside down, shovel your stuff everywhere and make it get broken. Maybe tagging it like that is not a bad idea.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but even travelling in the car, we go up to kind of Manchester or wherever to play a game. You put 4 people in a car, you've got to try and load all your stuff in as well. The really useful boxes were great because they stacked on top of each other. If everyone's got all these individual cardboard boxes because they've got different weird sized stuff, it becomes a bit of a mission as well. But no solution's ever going to be perfect, I don't think. I think that's something that is very easy to...
And is expanding sometimes. Because you have an army, you buy a bag or a load of foam for it, and then 6 months later you want to go to another tournament and your list has changed and you've swapped that vehicle for a different vehicle and you're taking a different unit, and then suddenly where you could have spent fortunes on a custom set of foam and everything for your army, suddenly then half of it is not needed, and well, actually I need some new foam now because I've now got this vehicle, etc. And then you're back to square one almost with your box and your stuff stuck in the top.
Definitely, and that's the advantage of most of those foam companies is you can buy extra foam, and with various ones of them like the KR, you can just buy another cardboard box to go with it as well. So when I'm like, oh yeah, I don't use all this stuff, and particularly with the way that those trays are done, because you're down to like 25 models per individual tray because they're halved across the size of the box. Okay, put the 25 models I'm not using, put them there, put them somewhere else, swap in the ones I am using. And then, say my case takes 4 of those KR cases. Yes, I might need a small box for the slightly larger whatever it is, but actually, if I'm ever going to play anything where I need more than that, chances are it's a big game at our club, and I'm only going up the club so I can fill the car with the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
It was definitely a factor for me. And what size case do I get? Well, actually, it's only X number of quid to go from this size one up to this one. But I can't see that me ever having an issue of going to a tournament or an event and struggling to fit everything in with that one. So it's worth it. I don't know. Maybe there are other issues that we're not thinking of. I don't really know. Naming and tagging your case is always a good one, because when your mate turns up and he's got exactly the same one.
Yes, yeah. KR cases look there's lots of very similar bags, isn't there?
There are indeed, and so maybe having some kind of tag on it. Luckily with Dan, his is a lot heavier than mine, because a lot of mine's very light resin or empty or plastic, and he has the odd metal or the odd real chunk of resin in there, so I can go, nope, that's not mine, that's really heavy, that's yours.
That's why I like my orange Pelly case, you see, because it's, again, it's yours.
Yeah, and, we had 57 gamers at the event, at South Coast Grand Tournament, there's 200 gamers. I must admit, I get my stuff out to a point, and then I put the rest of the stuff back in my car if I can, and leave out whatever I need to move them around, just because... A, mistakes happen, but B, we are very trusting of each other in this hobby, but, you get a few hundred people in a room and someone will be tempted at some point to do something a bit silly. Whether they do it or not, but, there are stories. So I think, you know what? Shove that in my car, it's out of the way then. And it's not a problem. But yeah, I can't think of anything else beyond that, really. I'm sure there is loads of stuff.
I'm sure people will email us and tell us if we've forgotten something drastic in regards to transporting armies.
Yeah, please do, because, this is only kind of what Neil and I think. We're always going to be limited in some respects by those opinions, because we like what we like and we don't like what we don't like. And there are going to be other companies as well out there who are doing other bits and pieces. Feel free to email Greg at The Imperial Truth or Neil at The Imperial Truth and tell us either how wrong we were, oh my goodness, I couldn't believe you didn't talk about this, you name it, anything like that.
Definitely, please do.
Awesome. We'll leave that section there. We'll come back and close the show out. And we're done with another episode. Thank you for listening, as usual. Sorry that it got a little bit confused going through the episode, but that's just the way this one worked. People, times, work, life gets in the way, and a little bit late on the recording schedule from me. So I'll hold my hands up with that one. We'll catch up with those bits we were going to do later anyway. So you won't miss out. It'll all be there. But going through next episode, what some of you may have seen on Twitter and Facebook, I actually received the first book in the Hatchet series of the novels, the Warhammer Legends or something like that it's called, which is a book series we were talking about, and they're quite good. They're quite good. I am going to have a subscription to give away. I'm just waiting for a little bit more information back from them, and then we'll launch the competition. Because of that, it will probably fall between this and the next episode, and the winner will probably have to be drawn either pretty soon when the next episode drops, or if not, on that day. So keep an eye on Facebook, keep an eye on Twitter, and we'll put it up on there on both of them. And then we're going to keep it simple. We haven't fully decided what we're going to do yet, have we, Neil? But it will be something. The idea is there'll be everyone will be able to enter. There'll be no barriers to entry, just as long as you can email, and that'll be contest at...
If you can spell the email address right.
Yeah, so contest at theimperialtruth.com, and I will tell you what to do for that one when you see the Facebook thread or the Twitters. because of this, the nature of the way these things work, we will be covering that first book. We will be reviewing it, because obviously me getting a book, that's the way the deal works, isn't it? Let's be upfront about it. But the reason I agreed to do this was because the first book is The First Heretic. So next episode, Neil and I are going to chat about that.
Can't wait.
Yeah, should be good. So I'm going to have to sit at work and make some notes. And what we're going to do is I will be kind of reviewing the books from the series. The really relevant ones, the heresy ones, we'll probably do as an episode, because, it's a good kick up the rear for me to do it as much as anything else. The other ones we might just tack on to the end of the episodes, because some of these 40k books do relate back and do have links as well. And, a lot of listeners do just read the lore of Games Workshop. I certainly know that's how I started, and I've moved back from reading lots of 40k, but I still read bits and pieces specifically, still going with the Beast of Rises and things like that. So, I know others do as well. So we will do that. But it's a case of, I think the books are coming out every 2 weeks as well, so it'll be handy for the ones I already read, but I might have to try and keep up with the other ones, adding it into the reading pile somewhere. Because when I'm reading, I'm not painting or working or making a podcast. And these things all need doing, don't they?
Yeah, it's trying to find the time to split between the three. That's why I do love an audiobook, because I can quite easily multitask with that.
Yeah, I like audiobooks. I sometimes tend to fade in and out of them, though. So that's why my preference is podcasts.
Yeah, I must admit, a podcast you can drop out of, and instantly you can get straight back into it.
Yeah, but it's also, for me, I find I drop out of them less because it's a conversation, whereas a book is description.
Yeah,
a lot of the time.
I've done that a few times with audiobooks. I can't remember where I was, and what was that part of the story he's talking about? And I have to do a bit of a rewind to try and refresh my memory.
So that's why I favour podcasts. But yeah, so we will be doing that. You'll be pleased to know. And hopefully we'll be back on the regular recording schedule as well. Again, that's just one of those things. It happens. And as usual, if you've got any feedback, you've got any questions, you've got any stuff that you think we should do on the show, then send emails to Greg at The Imperial Truth or Neil
at The Imperial Truth.
There we go. .com, indeed. And yeah, you want to ask us some questions, things like that, and we'll get around that. I still do have a few fat mats for sale. So most of them have gone, but I've got a couple of industrials and alien invasions. So I had someone email me asking if there were any available. I still have those. I also have a couple of 4x4s available as well. So I've got a swamp and an urban in 4x4. So if you, just in case you play Infinity or Privateer Press or something, or you just play a lot of smaller games of 40k, 30k, then, get hold of me if you're interested in one of those. Obviously, the 6x4s are £48 without postage, so it might be a case of I'm up in Nottingham in end of October for the campaign weekend and the Black Library live event, and I might be in Derby the week after that for an Age of Sigmar event as well, so there'll be a bit of travelling around the country. So we could organise something, meeting up maybe. But yeah, so email Greg at the Imperial Truth if you want to, .com, if you want to maybe pick up one of those. As usual, you can find us on Twitter. Child of Fang.
At Neil Paints.
Yeah, at Neil not painting at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, maybe I should change that.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's going to be a little while before you're back up properly painting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good couple of weeks before I get properly back into my painting. So it's a good break, but I know that I'm going to be really rusty.
Sure.
After I start again, I'm really not looking forward to that.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, yeah, what do you do when you're rusty then? Do you just pick up any old model and paint it?
I find that you just have to try and power through a good probably 3 or 4 days worth of trial and error and just going back at it, and suddenly it all starts to, like, muscle memory starts to come back. Just like, you do something and just go, oh god, that edge on that highlight is really wobbly, or that freehand's really scruffy. And then you very quickly sort of get back into the rhythm, but it does take a bit of time.
Yeah, okay. My edge highlights tend to be quite scruffy at the best of times. But then, yeah, I don't paint every night. Maybe I should be painting more often.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. It's just, I think just the regular painting does wonders.
I can't airbrush and record a podcast, unfortunately. It would sound a bit awful.
It would, wouldn't it?
Yeah, my compressor's kicking in. But yeah, I'll be getting on that. With that, I must admit, the kind of second stage of going through all my Age of Sigmar stuff it felt a lot better than the first one. So obviously, I'm improving a small amount.
Good.
Yes, but I think that's about it, really, for this episode.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, definitely. Remember, we have the Patreon if you want to get hold of that. I'm looking at a few things. It's one of those things where you lot know the score by now. It takes me a while to do stuff, and I am trying to keep myself honest with like having people kind of on me to do stuff. So fingers crossed, if you don't start to see like some changes maybe for the website and things like that over the next few weeks, then feel free to give me a prod on Twitter or whatever, and kind of remind me, or Facebook or whatever you got. So yeah, but if you're working on anything for remember you can post up on Facebook as well. You can search for the Imperial Truth. The group is the best one for that, where everyone can talk about it. We've had some Mastodons go up recently. We've had some Zone Mortalis stuff that's looking really cool, homemade. We've had a few other bits and pieces as well, which is really cool to see. So if you do need some hobby inspiration, then head along there as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Well, we'll see you in a short period of time. You have been listening to The Imperial Truth.